We are ready.
Do you want me to
Please.
wait for it? Good afternoon, everybody. It is September 3rd, 11:06, and I call this meeting in the Georgetown Independent School District to order. Let the record show that one of our board members is present, that the meeting has been duly called, and that the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 551. And with that, I'll turn over to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is the September 3rd board workshop. At this time, we'll see if we have any public comment. We do not have any public comments. We're going to roll right into today's workshop. Today we're going to have an update on strategic priority area 3, which is staff recruitment and retention. And then we're also going to talk about, we're including in today's workshop an action item related to a possible land purchase. So as we go into strategic priority area number 3, staff recruitment and retention, since this is a board workshop, I think an essential question we're here to answer is what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So the solution doesn't come out of this meeting, but the discussion of the question of the problem is going to be ongoing over the course of this year, which is how do we continue to recruit and retain high quality staff to Georgetown ISD, and that includes compensation, as we navigate the waters of underfunding public schools. So I'm going to hand it off to Ms. Amanda Johnson to take it from here.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Padwell. All right, so excited today to share with you all some celebrations and updates around strategic staffing and some initiatives that we've done since May. Really, it's been work that started after the comp plan was approved, and just as we worked throughout the summer, and as we worked alongside campus principals and departments to make sure that classrooms are staffed with an adult in each classroom. So the items that we'll talk about today are retention, talk about compensation, give you an update on campus vacancies and some work that we've done around that, talk about some enhanced compensation initiatives that we put forth to make sure that we have, not only do we have an adult in the classroom, but we're also taking care of the adults in the classrooms that are taking care of kids. Want them to continue to feel valued by our school district, and then give you an update on our grade program that we talked to you about, I believe in April, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's all been a part of strategic priority area 3. All right, so I want to first talk about retention. I do want to also note that the items that I listed in the previous slide are not mutually exclusive, right? Like they work together, so our compensation helps recruit and retain employees. So while I'll talk about these separately, they do also work together and impact the work that we do under priority area 3. So you'll notice with our retention rate, we wanted to point out that our retention rate for both teachers and all staff have increased over the past school year. So you'll see teacher retention rate was up by 2% and our total employee was up by 3%. Dr. Padwell mentioned a few minutes ago that our, despite a budget deficit this past spring, and we certainly are continuing to plan with that moving forward, you all made it a priority when we brought our compensation plan to make sure that our teachers were compensated well at 3.5%, which was in most cases higher than our surrounding districts. So we were able to do that with your approval of that. And so appreciate that. And I do think that that has a big impact on not just our teachers, but our all staff. I do think it's important to note one thing that is not really quantitative in terms of measurement. I do want to talk about our exit survey. We had 192 people that exited our Georgetown ISD over the past year. Over half of, 192 employees completed the survey, which is just right under half of those that left. And of those that did respond, 2/3 mentioned 3 things that I think are important about our district. And when asked the question, what did you like best about working in Georgetown ISD? And 3 things came up over and over again, and that was 1, the relationships that we have in Georgetown. The second thing was the family-like culture. And I know you guys have heard that over and over again, but I think that when employees choose to leave our system, and those are the things that are said over and over again, it's important to note that. And then the third thing that was said was support from administration and then the teams that they worked with. And so that ranged, the administration ranged anywhere from campus administration to campus and district administration. And then they said over and over again that the support that they feel within the teams that they work with, which also is about the relationships and the family-like culture. So I didn't want to leave that without leaving that information with you, because I just think it says a lot about our district and why people choose to come to Georgetown. We know that there are people that leave for various reasons. We're not going to keep people from retiring. We have about 9% of our 206 teachers that exited our system this last year who retired. And so those are the kind of things we won't be able to prevent, but we certainly want people to leave here with a good experience. So speaking of compensation, Dr. Padavo mentioned a few minutes ago that we were going to discuss that today. I think that if you guys, you should have a chart in your folder. I want to point out a few things on there before we get into a lot of detail on the other items. But so that there's two charts there, and the one on the bottom is actually last year. So when we came to you starting really in probably around January, we started talking about our compensation for beginning year teachers was in the bottom third. You'll notice that bottom, is this the one, do you have this one?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that you had the one with the...
We don't have the one with the blue over here.
Okay. Yeah, actually there's a...
Blue. We just had that.
Okay.
That's okay, we can.
Yeah, we can, and I can share it with you in the weekly this week as well. So the top chart is the same. The bottom chart that you'll see is just the comparison that we did last year at this time when we started bringing to you the compensation where we were falling in the bottom third. We were falling in the bottom third for our 0-year teacher and then also at our 10-year pay scale. And so when we brought our comp plan to you, the goal was to be in the top third. And you'll see in that chart at the top, you'll see 0-year. We now fall in the top half. And I do think it's important to note that we're only $445 away from falling in the top third. And so for 0-year starting pay. And so certainly the compensation plan helped us move up in that area. You'll also see that 10-year is falling right there in the middle of, as compared to our other districts. And then you'll see as we move over toward the right with our 20-year pay, we start to fall below that half mark. So just the goal, I mentioned up here that in 23-24, we started in the bottom third, and then with the approval of the compensation plan, we were able to make the moves that we did. And then in 24-25, our starting teacher and step, so for this school year, 10 and 15 is in that top half, and the goal would be to move to the top third. And then also note that we will be looking at our 20-year this year when we look at our, we work with TASB for our salary comparisons every year. We've not touched our upper level pay scale in the last couple of years. And so I think it's important to do that, considering the amount of new teachers that we're seeing come in the system, just the ability for us to retain veteran teachers to help with mentoring and support for our new teachers. So that'll be something that we will certainly be looking at in the spring when we start talking about compensation. All right, the next thing I want to talk about and focus on is some of our strategic staffing initiatives that we've done. We really started working on in June and have taken us up to the beginning of the school year. You can see in 23-24, we started our elementary vacancies out at 28 total. You can see the breakdown there, 14 gen ed, 10 sped, and 4 bilingual. In 24-25 this year, we started with 5 total vacancies, 1 gen ed, 2 sped, and 2 bilingual at the elementary level. That is not to say that we're not still struggling with filling sped and bilingual, and that we don't constantly look at ways to help support that recruitment effort, whether that's through compensation or through some other avenues, but certainly in a better place this year than we were last year. And I don't think it's just one single thing. I think that between our compensation plan, between our grade program that I'll give you an update on here at the end, and then also sorry, you can see the secondary vacancies were also better in the SPED area for sure. Gen Ed, we had 3 of those, and so overall better than what we were last year, but can't really target just one single thing. I think it's been a collective effort. I'll go down to the level staffing piece, really, and working with campus principals. So you all know that our current student attendance is up from this time last year. In fact, this morning we were at 13,768. And so with that, and then with the rezoning that occurred last year, as well as the grandfathering in, we started looking at numbers as we moved into the end of July and beginning of August. We really started having to make some decisions and have conversations with campus principals to really support strategic priority over one, right? Because that's really the main purpose that we exist, is to make sure that our kids have a great experience within our system. And so,
Amanda, may I kind of add in there? So I do want to express my appreciation to our principals, because how we've reallocated staff at this point of the year is different from how we may have been able to afford doing it in previous years. So, you know, if you're the principal at Ford Elementary and you're the principal at McCoy Elementary, and if you have a need, we may just be able to find the funds to add an additional position there, and then you have some span of time to look for a good candidate. What we've asked principals to collaborate with us on this year is, if it looks like the student count is down at McCoy, as early as we can, we're doing a strategic move to reallocate a teacher at a grade level to Ford to help them with that opening, instead of just adding a position there, adding a position. Because at the end of the year, the balance of our budget ends up, we end up doing a lot of cutting and whatnot. That's not an unusual practice, but it stings, right? Because by the second week in school, kids got to know their teacher, relationships have been formed across the adult teams, but this is one of those things where we're trying to balance the board priority of an efficient budget while meeting the needs of kids across the district.
It's also interesting, though, when you get in one of your weeklies, you talk about giving a stipend for those that are over, but I don't know that I ever heard it being done before, so.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that in a minute?
yeah, I think I have that, yep, I have it listed on the next slide. If you have that in front of you, our enhanced compensation. And you should have copies of that specifically to note for the elementary enhanced compensation, and also the enhanced caseload for special education. So in an event where we may have, let's say, 3 teachers allocated in 1 vacancy, and we have a situation where it would be in the best interest of kids to be with a certified teacher, we will take that class and dissolve that into the certified teachers' classrooms and provide them with a large and enhanced stipend. And so what we did with that was looked at for K through 4, we staffed 22 to 1, so once they hit the +5 at 27, there is a overall, if you get paid for the entire year, starting in September, the total pay would be $10,000 added over the course of the year. So I think it comes out to $1,111.11, right, per month. We would still continue to recruit a staff member, hoping that we could find a teacher to fill that 3rd vacancy, so we don't just take that. In some cases, we may get to December and we may be able to find like a graduate that could come in. We may also have teachers that go, it's small enough, and we've built back to the relationships that are built. So we work with campuses and teachers and campus principals to say, what is the best situation in that case, before we just say, you know, now we've given you the enhanced comp, but now we're going to do something different, right? We want to make the best decision for each individual case. With the special education caseload, we know that we've had situations over the course of the last handful of years where we've been short in that area. So the idea is the same. We worked really closely with our special education department, and they typically try to schedule where each case manager roughly is scheduled to have about 25 on their caseload. So if we have, it goes back to the same idea, if we have 3 resource inclusion teachers or 2 for a campus and we can't fill one, the caseload may get spread out amongst teachers on the campus. And if they hit that +5, then the compensation is the same. And so the idea really is to help, have kids with an adult, right? Instead of just long-term subs in the classroom that may or may not stay, those sorts of things. And so we do have a couple of situations where we are currently paying out. We don't have a lot. Back to what Dr. Padua was saying earlier about the conversations with campus principals, we were able to fill 5 vacancies the week before school started because of reallocation, because numbers may have not been what they needed to be on one campus and they were higher than expected somewhere else. And so I too want to just thank the campus principals in those conversations because they really did come from a team perspective. Thank you. It wasn't from a lens of what you're taking from my campus, right? It really was about all kids in Georgetown and how we can take care of every kid in every building. The third one that's listed on, let me just go to the next slide. The third one that's listed here is our large class, which we've been doing at secondary for high school. So, right, we've got 8 sections, so each teacher teaches 6 out of 8. The way that we've done it in the past is they, if they take on a 7th class, and they teach 7 out of 8. So every other day they go without a conference period, but we still meet the 450 because of the 90-minute conference period. If it's same prep, they get 5,000 additional. If it's an additional, they get 6,000. So we really had to kind of sit and think about what we're going to do with our middle schools because they work very differently with the 5 of 7.
Did we do that practice in previous years or the
For high school.
For high school.
For high school, we
Or the elementary initiatives we're doing to help compensate staff for new.
Or new, correct. Yeah, the elementary and the special education and even the secondary at middle school is we mirrored the idea that we would have, you would take on additional preps. But in some cases, the way it looks for middle school is we may have one adult that takes on 2 classes with an additional adult in there to support, whether that's through an aide or a long-term sub that the campus, maybe somebody that's a retired teacher, we do have a lot of those. And so, and then they would get 5,000 for each of those additional classes they take on. So in some cases, if you take up to 3 classes, you could have 15,000 if you did it all year long in additional compensation.
A couple of questions that we're going to continue to talk about as a district, and we would really value your feedback is, as you look at compensation and teacher salary, do we need to start thinking of different types or percentages of compensation for different years of experience? As you can see, we're getting really close for starting teacher salary to the top third, but as we go on in years of experience, the gains that some of our experienced teachers make it's pretty tight. So we can start to think about what creative compensation looks like for us to help, for lack of better phrases, keep teachers in the game in terms of compensation there. And then, what's not being said, but I think is implied, like we all assume it, is that in 2024, there are less teachers across the state entering the profession compared to those exiting the profession. So we have to continue to be creative, like things like the GRADE program, in helping make sure high quality learning is happening in every classroom. Any thoughts on that or any feedback for us?
You see, you guys are already looking at next year's budget numbers for working with TASB, or you want to do?
We typically start that process with them in early January. Yeah, so.
Well, and looking at, when you're looking at your 20-year veteran, you think 20 years, well, generally a teacher starts at the age of 22, you're only talking 42 years old. So there's a long track still in the school district. And, I think it's really valuable to look at that number and make sure that it's way up there as far as half or a third. I just think it's invaluable at this point, particularly for required teachers these days.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a part of what we asked Hasby to look at is 20 to, our compensation plan online goes to year 30, but we actually go out to year 50. It's just not posted to year 50. So just looking at all those latter steps in the process will be important this year. Anything else on that? Any other questions? All right, last but not least, certainly think that our grade program played a big deal in our vacancies. We had all 13 candidates have been placed and do have a mentor, and that happens by the end of June for us. 7 of the 13 are actively participating in IWU coursework already ahead of the October recommendation. So we've already received some invoices for that coursework, and so we're excited that they're excited and pushing through. So just as a reminder in that, remember in the application process, we asked for candidates this first cohort to have a minimum of 50 hours. And then remember, they couldn't have more than 90 hours in order to take that coursework with IWU. So we may have some that are around 50 hours. We may have some that are hovering up to 80, 85 hours. So that will determine, obviously, how soon some of them finish. But we are excited that over half of them have decided to already start coursework. And then our next round of recruitment will begin late first semester. So we'll jump on that a lot earlier this year than we did last year. We'll start those conversations in recruitment process certainly by the time we return in January.
Can you remind us in that line, so of those 7 of the 13, when will they be finishing that coursework, and then when do they get certification, and when are they going to actually be full-fledged certified?
Sure. So good question. So each candidate could graduate at a different time depending on how many hours they went in with, right? The hope would be by the end of the year, beginning of the year next year, because they all entered with a minimum of 50, that they will have graduated from IWU and then will then be in an ACP, an alternative certification program, which at that point means we can bring them on as a certified teacher, or actually we would bring them on as a teacher with a contract, with an addendum to the contract, right, that says we will, because that's something also that we've added this year is instead of paying somebody in an ECP program or ACP program, instead of paying them as a long-term sub waiting for them to become certified, we've placed them to be competitive with our neighboring districts on teacher contracts with an addendum that says we expect for this coursework to take on, right, that we expect for you to be working toward that certification, so that our hope is that by the end of that next year, they're fully certified and ready to go. And so the alternative certification programs typically take about a year. And so the hope is that we would have 13 fully certified at the latest by the end of the, 24, 25, 26 school year. And then we'll have another round coming in after that. And so.
And you guys are increasing the size of the program? Is that right?
That also depends,
Depends on that.
right? It depends. I will say that, and I have to say this, Leslie Telemontes, our Director of Human Resources, has really done a good job of developing some systems to help support. She meets with them on a minimum of a bi-weekly basis to do check-ins, check in how coursework is going. They have a chat that blows up where they can speak and ask questions and connect with each other, because they are doing some different things than some of our others on top of their mentor. Leslie's done a really great job of developing some of those support systems to make sure that they're successful through the program. And so the hope is that we would each year be able to add anywhere from 10 to 15, but as we add additional, if the others have not graduated, there's still the need to help support. And so the hope would be that we would add a minimum of 10 each year.
And then you'll keep the entry requirements the same unless we're starting to see issues filling?
Unless we start seeing issues and we have people that, you know, if we've recruited everybody that's got a minimum of 50 hours, right, then we'll bump that down to whatever the need is at the time, which would then mean that it could take them a little bit longer to get through.
Thank you.
I think opportunities to continue to be creative like that are going to work for us, particularly when we have candidates coming to us that have experience in workforce, military, and may not just have the bachelor's degree behind them, opportunities to kind of bring their experience into the classroom are going to be huge for us.
Well, we've also placed, I believe it's 5, I can make sure those numbers are accurate at Board Weekly as well, but those great candidates have been placed in some of our ILC and BCS classrooms, and the experience that they bring, right, because they've already been working in those special programs and with our students and staff, and so the transition has really been seamless. And so I also think that that's one of the reasons that we don't see as many openings in those special programs classrooms. Right now, we only have one campus that's looking at contracted services, which was not the case last year in our programs. And so the hope is that as much as we hate to steal those paras, backfilling that with a teacher that is prepared for what that work looks like and is excited to do it, I think long-term is best for our district and our kids.
And is there a difference in longevity as far as where they fall on the pay scale? So if they've been with the district already for 10 years, they're taking advantage of this program now. They've had that experience in the classroom and so forth. When they graduate, do they still fall under the 0 to 5?
They do. Yeah, they still fall as a 0-year teacher.
Which is
Yeah.
still a substantial step
Step
up
up from
from,
where
It
they're
is.
coming from.
Yeah.
and we're helping farmers.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
What is the beginning salary of an aide for the para?
I don't have it in front of me, but it runs on average about $25,000 a year.
Trustees, unless you have any other questions, we'll move on with our agenda. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amanda. Landon Heflin is going to join me to discuss possible land purchase as an action item. Mr. Chair, do you wish to go into closed session to discuss prior to this?
All right, well, good morning. Get an entire 1 slide's worth of information here. So, yeah, this is an action item for the board to consider today. The Georgetown ISD superintendent is requesting authorization to execute a contract to purchase 11.47 acres of land in the northwest part of the district, deposit earnest money, and conduct a feasibility study. The land committee convened multiple times on this, and we all are in agreement that it is in the best interest of the district to purchase this piece of land. It's adjacent to land we already own, it separates us from a road and some access that we really need. And so, as you can see, James Shearer is on that committee, and there are some questions if you have as well as Dr. Conley. So,
And Landon, the funds for the possible purchase of this land would come from, it wouldn't come out of our maintenance and operations, which pays teachers.
correct, yes.
It comes out of existing bond funds?
Correct. Yes, yes, sir.
I think because it's an action on procedure, we need to do a motion, and then we can see if there's any questions or comments. At this point, unless y'all have something else to share.
No, just answer any questions you might have about it, otherwise it's.
Mr. President, I recommend that you authorize me to enter into a contract to purchase these tracts of land.
I move to authorize the Georgetown ISD superintendent to contract the land purchase and authorize the board secretary to execute a certificate of resolutions memorializing the board's action.
Motion from trustee McLaughlin. Second. Second from trustee Hurt. Any comments or questions or clarity on me? I know these guys a lot. They've done a ton of work. I think this is actually probably a gift to us from some previous boards that had the foresight to lock in this piece of land when we couldn't buy it when we originally wanted it, but they were able to negotiate an option if that land ever sold for us to then make our site full. And so it really just kind of became a gift to the district from a previous board where they were able to lock in some of this and the rates and things that are super advantageous to the district. So I was excited to see the work plan and everyone did to kind of tie this thing in.